Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the WP Minute. I'm your host, Eric Karkovac. So, today's episode is all about web accessibility. We all know the importance of building accessible websites, and there are moral and legal obligations to doing so. And, the idea of an accessible website seems very simple, but it often feels like a complex subject. So, to help us out, I'm joined by WordPress accessibility team members Adrienne Grace and Isla Waite. They're here to discuss the upcoming WP Accessibility Day and offer tips for making your website accessible. Adrienne and Ela, thank you for joining us on the WP Minute.
It's Isla.
Isla, I'm so sorry. I do this all the time. I should know better.
Do you wanna
Isla,
do it
I
again?
I'm sorry.
No problem. No problem at all. I had to do it now rather than in the middle.
I see the spelling and I always think of Isla, the Spanish pronunciation. Um,
Yes,
back to my high school days. Anyway,
but it's like
welcome to the
island.
WP Minute. It
Thank you.
is. Welcome to the WP Minute. I'd love to know a little bit more about each of you. If you want to tell us your background in accessibility, let folks know where your areas of expertise lie. Isla, we'll start with you.
Lovely to meet you, Eric. Thank you for having us today. Um, so I'm based in Sacramento, California, although I have an accent because I'm originally from England. Um, I am a project manager for one company and a business owner for my own business. And I am overall a WordPress accessibility professional. I got into WordPress accessibility probably 5 to 6 years ago now. And it was kind of by accident. We were working on a project where this a state agency needed accessible PDFs. And we're all sort of looking at each other like, "Ooh, what's that?" So we got some help. And at which point the world started to make sense for me and my colleague, Rosalinda. And we started digging in. Over a couple of years, we discovered there is a certification with the International Association of Accessibility Professionals. And we took that. Um, and out of that came the business that I now own that specializes purely in website accessibility remediation. And we coach as well because we want to help designers and developers understand that this isn't scary. And it just takes a little bit of planning. Yeah, so that's my background.
Yeah, Adrienne, how about you?
I have been a graphic designer and web designer for a number of years. And I want to say probably in 2018, I saw an article on Smashing Magazine, which our keynote speaker this year, Vitaly Friedman, is from Smashing Magazine and is very involved in the UX side of accessibility. And the article was all about how designers play a role in web accessibility. And it was this aha moment for me. And I thought, wait a minute. And I decided, okay, I need to learn more about this. So my 2019, goals for the year, New Year's Day was learn more about this web accessibility thing. Fast forward to today, I also have my certification from IAAP, and well, I do websites and graphic design documents for small individual clients. I am now employed at the Standard, which is a benefits company, and I work in the creative team to make actually PDFs typically accessible. Again, sort of like web design, you want to do it as close to the start as you can in the source document, in the source code. And so I'm doing a lot of training as well as testing and remediating.
Tell us a little bit about WP Accessibility Day. What is it, and what are folks going to learn by participating?
Go, Ira.
Okay. So WordPress Accessibility Day is a 24-hour continuous event, and it's free to attend. This year we're using Zoom events, so it's all very professional. We've been slowly upgrading through the years. Um, it's global. We have a global team of organizers. I'm going to use Amber Hines, one of the board members. Her term was phenomenal volunteers. That is what we have. both in the organizing team leads and then in the wider group of volunteers that help on the day and up to the event. And everyone just digs in and it's amazing. So for us, that's the amazing part of it. And then at the end of all of that, we get 2 days of amazing talks that cover the gamut of accessibility. So it is WordPress accessibility, that is the focus, but over the years we've branched into definitely different areas. So design, and we have a colorblind designer as a speaker this year. We have an Auslan speaker, Australian Sign Language, which is just going to be an amazing experience to see somebody signing somebody else
Yeah.
speaking what is being signed, and then another signer doing American Sign Language for that particular talk. And I've heard that speaker is very interesting and entertaining, so I'm super excited about that talk. But yeah, it's so varied, and it was initially for developers. That's the way it was designed in the early days when it was Joe Dawson, who is still on the board now. But now it's everybody: designers, developers, product managers, project managers, everybody.
Yeah, it looks like a very diverse array of subjects and something that can impact, the beginner, the more intermediate and advanced users, which I think is great. Because I think one of the things as someone who builds websites, really everybody has to be a stakeholder in accessibility, right? I mean, as a developer, I can build something accessible, but if my client's not on board, that only goes so far, right?
Yep.
And that is true. It's the concept of shift left, which you may have heard of, which is we want to be thinking about accessibility from the get-go. From the time you put pencil to paper or pixel to screen, you want to be thinking about accessibility from the ground up. And you are right that we have a diverse set of topics. We try and be inclusive in that way, in that there are topics for beginners, intermediate, and advanced, for all sorts of people within that process. Again, designers, developers, maybe project managers, everyone in the process. We also try and make it inclusive because we do have American Sign Language. We also have live captioners. And then we have somebody on our organizing team, Joni, who has been doing an amazing effort getting translators, and we are getting a lot of the past talks translated into primarily French and Spanish at the moment, but we do have a number of other languages that folks are able to now access on our YouTube channel, the prior years in other languages. So we do try and make this truly accessible on all levels.
Yeah, we don't always talk about language and accessibility, do we? That we primarily like to do things in English. I know that's kind of how the world works, but WordPress is global. The web is global. And if we can make it accessible to folks who speak different languages, I think that's such a positive. Kudos to you for doing that. And I also want to mention too that both of you are on the West Coast of the United States right now. I'm on the East Coast. There's a 3-hour time difference. It's just a little after 6 a.m. when we're recording this. So I applaud you both. Your dedication to accessibility is like
Thank you.
unrivaled.
We have our large cups of coffee.
Fully loaded today.
If I had trophies to give out, you would both get one. So thank you for that too. So that's dedication to your craft. So
Well,
that's
thank
awesome
you.
to see.
Actually, I will say in all honesty, because we are on the West Coast, and we do, as Isla mentioned, we have a global team of volunteers. My role this year is as volunteer lead, and I've been placing a lot of the MCs and moderators, as well as a few of us folks from the organizing team that'll be the tech admins. And we pass it off over to, I think the next team behind us is, they're based in Australia. They'll be turning it over to folks that are in Africa and Europe. So we truly do have a global set. And Al and I have been up into the wee hours of the morning, our time, in a couple of years. We're trying not to do that to ourselves this year. We are very, very fortunate.
It's right. There's always something going on behind the scenes, and nobody
Yes.
in the front knows about it. That's the plan.
Well, after this is all over, at least you'll hopefully be able to catch up on sleep a little bit and get back to a regular schedule.
Yes, don't get me wrong, it's worth every moment of it, but like anything, you put your heart and soul into it, and it's a really dedicated team of people, that I feel like have become our friends, and we're all very dedicated to making this go off, um, as seamlessly as possible because we have some amazing speakers this year. I mean, we've had them every year. Oh, one of the topics I wanted to say was I know in previous years, if anybody's interested in the legal aspects, we have actually also had folks who talked about the legal aspects of accessibility, not just in the US, but I know this past year, earlier in June, we had the European Accessibility Act, which took effect. We've had some folks that have talked about them, I believe, in Africa. So we do touch on even those topics.
Yeah, that's great. The legal aspect is kind of huge and something like folks in our profession don't necessarily know about. Here in the US, the guidelines are so very unclear. And we see lawsuits, we see things that happen that we're not exactly sure why sometimes. Sometimes it's very clear cut. I remember the Domino's pizza case years ago, where they had, like, I believe, a flash build your own pizza widget, and it obviously not accessible. But
To
that was kind of
anyone,
obvious.
to anyone.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah, I mean, you really had to have a high-speed computer to even run that thing, if it didn't crash. And a lot of dexterity to use your mouse just so. But yeah, so it's great you guys are covering all the topics. Um, so I also want to mention, I don't think we mentioned the dates. It's October 15th through 16th, and the website is wpaccessibility.day, and we'll link to that in the show notes as well. Um, Nice that it actually is the 16th is my birthday. So I appreciate you giving me all these lessons on my birthday. That's like the best gift anyone can give me. So thank you for that. But I do want to switch gears for a moment because at the WP Minute, we like to give actionable advice. A lot of our audience are freelancers, they're agency owners, they're developers. Um, and I think accessibility, as I said, is one of those things that it seems so simple, right? And yet we so often fail at it. Um, and in your experience as project managers and accessibility experts, what are the most common things that you see that go against best practices, like maybe mistakes that are made on sites?
I mean, the biggest is color contrast. And I think that goes for websites and PDFs, which commonly appear on websites these days. Um, yeah, when the text is not strong enough against the background, whether it's too dark or too light, and you know, a lot of people might struggle to see it, and that's a common issue, and a bit of a sticking point sometimes with designers who want to make something beautiful, and we completely understand that. But beautiful isn't always accessible. So, well, wait, no, let me take that back. Accessible is beautiful. And we help those designers make that their vision reality, but with more contrast. So that
I even
in
had clients
darkness
who've
can be
come
seen
to
on the light
me.
background.
I've had clients who've come to me like that too and say, well, this doesn't match our color scheme. I said, well, it doesn't
Mm,
pass muster with the color contrast ratio, and but they're kind of stuck in that mode where it's got to be
yeah.
this very shade, and I'm even you know if it only looks that way on their monitor, which is
Yeah.
still like a problem too because different devices, different monitors are going to show that color a little differently. Uh, Adrian, what else do you see that folks are doing wrong?
Obviously, I was going to say color contrast is far and away the largest. I do see a lot of forms where there's no label, they just have placeholder text. And that's a big one. I know, again, often designers or sometimes, stakeholders, oh, I want it clean. I don't want it to distract people. But the problem is that as soon as you start to type in, the placeholder in that field goes away. And now I have no idea. Did it ask for, especially when it comes to say something like a number format? Um, what did it say? Where's the hint? It's gone. I have no idea what it needs. I cannot be the only person who might have had a phone call or an email or a child that needed something, and you come back 10 minutes later. What was I in the middle of? I don't know. I heard a woman who was a UX designer. She said she had been in a car accident and had a horrible migraine for like 4 months straight while she was healing. And she said, it totally changed the way I approached forms because suddenly my migraine meant that I couldn't remember stuff. And looking at the screen was so difficult. And she said that experience, as bad as it was, the positive effects out of her for her as a UX designer, looking at that in a different way. So there are a lot of things that's color contrast, but thinking about folks that have dyslexia, um, other, what we think of as, less obvious, you know,
Invisible.
yeah, contrast also affects people that are colorblind, and we do have a colorblind designer who's going to be speaking this year, which I think is really fascinating. That is something they're going to see the world a little bit differently. So it is some of those things that you think about hierarchy that needs to be clear. Is it easy? Can I see it, right away? Do I need to struggle to understand it?
And can a screen reader see it?
Yeah, there's that.
We talk a lot about screen readers
And
in this
speaking of
world.
that, I mean, the first thing I thought of when you talked about form labels is that we can make labels hidden so that only screen readers can see them, right? But that doesn't necessarily make it accessible. It's accessible to a screen reader, but what about everyone who's just looking at the form and doesn't know what they're supposed to fill into that particular item? I was using a plugin setting the other day where it had these labels inside the field, and I had to keep cutting and
Mm.
pasting the text I was writing to make sure that I was getting the formatting correct. And it's like, it doesn't have to be this hard. Why can't we just use labels?
I think this is another common, not attitude, but misconception in the world that, oh, we should hide things that make the design somehow different to what we've been used to for the last 2 decades. When actually the things that we would like to see for accessibility will help everybody. With across the gamut, whether you've got a brain injury or you're just having a bad day and
Yeah.
got up at 5 a.m. and can't remember anything. Having those form labels visible above the place where you're typing all the time means that you don't second guess yourself. You're not feeling anxious to get this thing done. It just calms everything down.
Yeah, I think that sometimes we're marketing folks and designers and developers kind of collide. We're you know we have people insistent that we have to hide this. We can't have this here. It looks old fashioned, or
Mhm.
in reality, you're just making it harder for folks to make those conversions, those sales, things that you're hoping they do on your website, and you're actually making it harder by making it look cool. Um, that leads me into my next question. We have such a large ecosystem. We have all sorts of ready-made themes and plugins, and I think we can get off to the wrong start when building a website just by choosing the wrong theme or plugin. What how do you handle that? I mean, is that something that you look at when you're in the project management phase, that you have trusted plugins you know are accessible? Have you ever had to say, like, sorry, we can't use this?
Yeah.
We've
I,
stood. Sorry, you go.
yes.
You go.
I was gonna say yes, yes to all of those. Yes, I've had to say to clients, I'm sorry, we can't do it this way. Um, Again, I will say, in being in this community, you do start to hear um, the plugins and, or theme builders that are more accessible. And of course, the more into it you get, the more you know what not to do, to not hide your form labels. but there is a lot of stuff out there. I would say do the research if you can ahead of time. I will, it's not my business. So I'm going to shout out Equalize Digital has a called an accessibility checker plugin that I rely on heavily to flag a lot of those issues. But there are things that you don't even think about. It's, maybe your form plugin that we've talked about, something that came up recently in the WordPress accessibility meetup that's monthly is, oh gosh, I'm blanking, the cookie banners. Sorry, it is early my
Yes.
time. The cookie banners that pop up and anything that's like that, that's a modal can be an issue. So it's sometimes those things that I would admit a cookie banner would be something like, oh, I install it. I'm happy legally. I check that, yes, I'm doing business in the EU and Australia, and I'm great because it'll just set up the right language. And we're thinking about it in terms of the legality of it and making sure for our clients that we're covering them. But suddenly we might have opened them up to another issue around accessibility. Maybe you
And
can't
some
use
of
it.
those issues are actual barriers. We watched Alex, who is blind, navigating, landing on a website and landing on a cookie banner, and then basically getting stuck in it and getting stuck in like 1,000 different options that he didn't understand, and then trying to find his way out of the cookie banner. He hasn't even made it to the website yet, and you've lost a potential audience there. It's fascinating to see someone use a website completely different to the way that you might use it. Yeah,
I
it's
think that's
very
a that that seems to be such a huge part of this too, is that, you know, we don't always get to see that, and the opportunity to see how someone else experiences that website, I mean, can totally change your perspective, I'm sure, on, what it is and what it needs to be in order to be accessible. So we talked about Accessibility Checker. That is a great plugin. Um, are there any other tools and processes that you recommend folks use to, ensure what they're doing is you know, being following those guidelines?
How about you, Ellen?
building a community. It would be a great one because you always want to be able to rely on like somebody else, like myself and Adrienne, connect on all kinds of things and like, hey, have you come across this before? Hey, do you have a recommendation for this? And that's the quickest way to get to a good place. And at the end of the day, we're all trying to do our best. And at the end of the day, across states and across countries, they're using different standards. Most people are using the WCAG standards, which I forget what it stands for. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. There we go. So most people are using that, but they're using different levels of it. So if you're just getting into it, that is super overwhelming. But finding people who offer like beginner introduction to WCAG is better than going straight to, the insane directory that exists. Going to a bunch of webinars, going to WordPress Accessibility Day on October the 15th and 16th would be a great way to start. And I just want to revisit that question about plugins and themes. And I think it's like, what's that saying about eating the elephant a bit by bit? I think that's how you have to approach this when you haven't done it before. Certainly as a website builder, that I am not, but I've watched my colleague do this over a number of years. And you start off just taking a little bit. Let's work on the contrast. Let's work on the hierarchy. Let's find somebody who can manually test this for us. I mean, that's a bit bigger part of the elephant, but they're out there. More and more people are learning to use screen readers to be able to test these websites. You could learn to do that yourself. And I know that Equalize Digital is offering a course in learning to use a screen reader. So yeah, just bit by bit, and don't worry that it's a marathon. It's going to be a long journey. You can't learn it all in one day. And then when it comes to clients, that's kind of my domain. They might say, well, I want this on my website. And I'll say, now I know from knowledge, we have 3 plugins that can achieve that for you that we know are accessible. So it has to be one of those. we know that this one does things this way. This one does it that way. This one you've got to pay for, and it's $500 a year. So I'm able to lay those options on the table. And I always want to give my clients options rather than telling them what to do. And hardline it, la la la. It's a lot about education and a lot about helping them make good choices, which seems to go really well for me. They start to understand why it's important. I also talk a lot about, if they're hiring, well, what kind of people do you want to hire? Do you want to be inclusive? Let's make that form accessible. And the lights go on and they really start to understand it. And then, when I put a budget in front of them, they're understanding why, we need to do this research. And it's just so important for out their company and outside of their company and our economy in California and our economy globally. It has such a knock-on effect to absolutely everything.
Yeah, I mean, education seems to open a lot of doors for people. When they don't understand accessibility or understand why it's important, they may not see it as something that they need to worry about. But then when you start laying it on the table and this is why you want to have your forms accessible, this is why your shopping cart needs to be keyboard navigable and those type of things, then they start to see, okay, there's something in it for me, but there's something in it for the folks that are using this website and, are hopefully going to be our long-term customer and come back to us. It really benefits everyone, right? There's no downside to it.
Yeah, agreed. Making it whoever said I really want fewer customers, or I want to make it more of a pain for them to get to this information or purchase this product or service. I don't think anybody. And the numbers are between 20 and 25% globally, folks that have some form of a disability. And many of those disabilities are hidden. Nobody walks around with a sign that says, "Hey, I'm colorblind." Some things are more obvious, but I've been sitting in a room where I'm the only one not wearing hearing aids. So, that's a barrier for some folks. Um, which is why everything in my world always has captions on. So people are like, "Oh, do you watch a lot of foreign films?" Well, yes, but um, and there isn't a downside, right? Sometimes find out very quick dialogue. Hey, I was missing that. Uh, you know, so to your point, there's no downside to making things easier, quicker to understand, a faster, easier solution to get the information, purchase the product, use the service.
Exactly. Good points. And it kind of leads me to the next area that I wanted to ask about. So we often build a website, we hand it off to our clients, and it could be 100% accessible. Once the client gets a hold of it, it may not be 100% accessible after long. So I know, Eli, you mentioned training, right? Coaching. What does that look like? What kind of advice do you give to folks who are going to maintain their website maybe and make sure that they're using best practices in the areas they're touching of the website? Because they may not be touching everything. They may be just putting blog posts in. But how do you go about that?
Yeah. Great question. So it kind of depends what our relationship has been with them to that point. Did we build them a website from scratch? Did we help them remediate, which is the word used to take an inaccessible website to an accessible website without rebuilding it? Which is a desired approach when you're looking at large websites. It's when they're deep and broad, and the last thing they want to do is rebuild it. We'll start chipping away at remediation, and we'll do that over a period of time, which could be months, up to a year or two. It could take a long time. So during that process, coaching is happening. And we might be using the Accessibility Checker plugin. My colleague Rosalinda will be literally side by side with whoever's going to be the person taking care of the website, updating the content, and talking them through how to understand what the check is telling them. and think that you're going to get false positives. You're going to get things that you now know with the knowledge that you've gained that you can ignore. Like literally tell the computer, ignore that. I checked it. It's fine. I know that PDF's accessible. So there's that level of learning that happens just through the process. And if we build them a website, it's more likely that training is going to happen at the end. And it will just be a part of the scope to do that towards the end. And then, a lot of agencies, us included, and Equalize Digital too, will do maintenance plans to check in as time goes, whether it's, monthly, quarterly, half every, 6 months or whatever, just to make sure standards are being kept up. Do we need a little retraining here? And that kind of coaching can go as deep as a company wants to go. Obviously, generally depends on their budget, depends on how many people are accessing the website. Third parties accessing the website, if you've got a lot of them, can be quite the octopus to, control. So you might want more checks. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I mispronounced your name again, Isla. I'm so sorry. I caught myself right after I said it.
I knew who you meant.
You on the top of my screen. Okay.
Exactly.
I'm sensitive too because people mispronounce my last name all the time, so I apologize. Sometimes
I'm
I
not
get things.
going to even try and say your last name.
Don't worry about it. You don't need to know it, but ask my family. I have a short-term memory lapse that sometimes people, can you unplug my charger? Sure. And then 6 hours later, it's still plugged in. Oh yeah. Sorry about that, folks. But that's great advice for coaching. Clients, one of those things that, you could look at the site 6 months later and they put in, say they put in 50 blog posts or press releases and they failed to put alt attributes on all of them. So you have to go in and kind of look at that. Do you see AI as a helper in any of this? Because it can generate text. It can do things. I mean, it may not be accurate text. But
There's that. I would say the bits that I've tested it, there are, of course, so many webinars out there and blog posts. I think I see the phrase AI probably 150 times a day between, the emails and the blog posts and every platform that you log into. I think it has its uses. I think the true danger is thinking that it's the be all end all and it's the answer. And it might get you started on something. It might give you a leg up. It might give you something to work with. But in terms of alt text or other solutions, it really still does take somebody going in and looking at it. I know, I think one of the first demonstrations that I saw, a gentleman was showing his photo app that had the AI built in, and it routinely identified his black lab as a pair of sunglasses. So, um, like, I know this is not a pair of sunglasses. Even with low vision, I know it's not a pair of sunglasses. So sometimes it can be pretty good. A lot of times, particularly if you're asking it to decide what a chart or graphs, I find that a lot in because you can run into the same thing in PowerPoint presentations. I see this a lot, and it's trying to tell you it's a chart with red and green and yellow bars. Great, that's fine. That is true. It doesn't tell me anything about the chart. So that is absolutely a case where I would encourage people to go in and actually write their own text, but at least review it. Or if it's something that's true, the other thing is the AI won't necessarily decide if something is decorative. That lovely fleur-de-lis may just be something that's visually appealing, gives the eye a rest in your layout, but doesn't have any meaning whatsoever, is not conveying anything about your product, your service, or anything. So it could be left, as a decorative image. And those, again, often are, to me, decisions that are better at least reviewed by a human.
AI misses context.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we all want the easy and cheap answer, right? But that often comes at an extra cost, and that you're relying on a machine to do something a human is much better equipped to handle.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know there are some folks out there that, okay, we have alt attributes on all of our images, so we pass. It doesn't actually matter if it gets the context of the image. It doesn't matter if it is at all accurate or helps folks figure out what they're looking at, or what is what's in the content. It's covered. So like Google Page Speed says, hey, you're 100% accessibility, so way to go. It's more than that, right? You have to have the human element still. I don't know that we're going to get away from that anytime soon.
Accessibility is not a checkbox. That is the wrong way to approach it.
Well, and I would say one of the things is that we're asking a computer to write something for a human, right? The users are humans. If the AI bot were just writing for another AI bot, well, okay, I guess that's all right. But the truth is, we are ultimately designing and connecting with humans. And we can't forget that the human element is the absolute core of why we're doing what we're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, the bot does not go shopping for you yet. I mean, I'm sure that's coming. Your personal shopper bot, will look on Amazon for the right deal on toothpaste or whatever. But for the rest of us, who want to buy our own toothpaste online, if we do that, we need to know what we're looking at and what's there and how much it costs and how to buy it. So that's great advice. So I'm going to wrap it up there. But is there anything else you'd like to tell us about WP Accessibility Day? Any other great things that we're going to look forward to on October 15th and 16th?
When
There
you
is
sign up, you
actually
can get the cool
yeah,
T-shirt
That is cool.
we have
register
for.
and you could buy one of these if you donate. I remember how that works. You may
Can't remember.
donate if you like
Yeah,
to WordPress
and even
Accessibility.
has.
You do not
Uh-huh. I like it.
We'll read that out. Let me read that out.
Sorry.
Okay. So on the back it says alt equals WPAD in American Sign Language on the front of a light blue T-shirt.
Love
There's
it.
some alt. And the reason I read that out is because somebody might not be able to see it.
Exactly. And there are also going to be people listening to this in addition to watching it. So that makes a lot more sense, right? I actually was at a concert over the weekend with my daughter, and there were several performances that were signed.
Mm-hmm.
These bands were up on stage rocking out, and there was this gentleman in a very sparkly cowboy hat. I actually have a video of him
Love
because
it.
he was so cool. And he was grooving up there into the music. He was giving us lyrics. He was giving us drums and guitar and all that stuff. Like, what a cool thing to do. And I'm sure there are folks who are hard of hearing in that venue, and why not? It adds to the experience too for
Exactly.
even if you're not hard of hearing. Well, thank you, Ela. And I said it right, didn't I? Isla. No, I didn't say it right. Oh my gosh. Oh, I need more coffee. You're the ones who are up early. I'm just here. Isla, wait, and Adrian, Grace, thank you so much for being here and educating us on accessibility and letting us know more about WP Accessibility Day.
Don't forget to register. 15th
Yeah,
and 16th of October. It's free.
it's
It's
free. 2025.
WPaccessibility.day.
Yep,
We'll put that in
exactly.
the show
Thank you.
notes. And also, if you're listening or watching, visit the WPminute.com/subscribe. You can get our email newsletter there. You can support us by becoming a member. Support my mispronunciation of names and all the other embarrassing stuff I do on film. I appreciate both of you being here, and thanks so much. And we'll see you next time on the WP Minute.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.